I'm Bill Thompson, and I'm a member of the Oviedo American Legion Post 243 in Oviedo, Florida. It's my privilege today to interview David Wright, who was a career military, and he is here with us today. And the interview is taking place in Oviedo, Florida at the Lawton House. We'll start with some biographical details. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and when you entered the service.
Okay, first I'd like to say I'm glad to be here and I'm glad to be a part of this interview. My name is David Wright, and I retired as the E7 Sergeant First Class.
Okay, where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in the city of Detroit way back in 1931, so it makes me a little young chicken. I grew up there and remained there until I went into the service in 1949.
Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My mother was named Alberta and my father was David, and my mother was just typical housewife, and my father was eventually a factory worker at the Chevrolet Gear and Axle.
Okay, who are your siblings, names and genders?
Oh, I had 4 sisters. 2 were older and 2 were younger. I guess you could say I was in the middle there. My sister Nettie and Pauline were older, and my sisters Geraldine and Maxine were younger.
Were any of them in the military?
No, none of them were in the military, and matter of fact, I can say, as far as my family tree goes, I don't think there's anyone of my family tree my older family tree that is in the military. I had several of those that are younger.
What were your parents or siblings' feelings about you joining the service?
Well, really, initially, my mother was totally against it, and my father understood the circumstances that I was in, that I had to raise my age by 2 years in order to go to work in the factory myself. So I was a full-time student and a full-time factory worker. I worked at Chevrolet Gear and Axle as a machine operator, drill machine operator, and my father said, "You got a better job than I do," but that was had raised my age by 2 years, and that was during the time of the draft was just getting ready to begin. And in order for me to straighten my life out, really, at my real age, which at that time was 17, I needed to enlist in the Army before I was drafted.
Okay. What primary and secondary schools did you attend?
I went to Maybe Elementary School and Dwyer Junior School, 8th grade, and I did my middle school at Hutchins Middle School, and then I went on to Northern High School. And eventually I had the equivalency to a 2-year degree at Wayne State University.
Okay. Can you tell us about when you went into the military? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
As I said earlier, I enlisted mainly by to straighten out my life in more ways than one. Because I had, as I stated earlier, made the mistake of cribbing on my age in order to go to work in local factory.
Why did you join?
Well, like I kind of, I've said before, I need to straighten out my life. I wasn't doing too well in high school, and my social life wasn't really hitting too much, and I was working a full-time job and going to high school, and things just weren't going that well in my life at that time.
Okay. What or who did you leave behind? Family or girlfriend, etc.?
Yeah. I left my mother and father and 4 sisters and what I thought was my girlfriend, and that's about it.
Okay. In what branch did you enter?
Okay, one thing I need to explain at this point, a lot of people, I should say most soldiers today don't realize that there were basically 2 armies. There was the, when I say 2 armies, it was the Black Army and the White Army. And in order for me to go in, the branches of service had quotas, and my choice was to go into the Air Force. I wanted to go into the Air Force, but because of the quota system, all the other services, the branches of service, had filled their quota, so I had no other choice but to go into the Army. So that's where I really enlisted into the United States Army.
Okay, how did you get to your initial point of entry?
Oh, by train. I left Detroit. We all got together at Fort Wayne, right there in Detroit, Michigan, and they took us to, which was very prior, took us to the train station, and we left on the Amtrak going to Chicago, where we changed trains and went to from Chicago to St. Louis, and it was there that I had my first experience with segregation. First time in my life I had seen a fountain that said "white only," the drinking fountain. There was a big sign above the drinking fountain that said "whites only," and this was really, to me, a shocking experience. And then from there we just went on into Fort Riley, Kansas for induction into basic training.
Tell us a little bit about your basic training and what was it like?
Oh boy. Kansas is a horrible place in the wintertime. I realized that. I didn't know it before I got there. It is cold in Kansas during the winter. And those 8 weeks were probably the most miserable weeks I had at that time in my life. It was, the drill instructors were mean and they were ugly, and they treated us like dirt. They inducted us into the Army the way at that time I guess was normal.
What was your most vivid memory of your time in basic training? What was the best part and what was the worst part?
Well, I guess the worst part is, like I said, it was cold. I mean, it was cold, and I guess that was one of the colder winters of the up until that time, at least to my knowledge. And as far as something to mention something good about it, I can't really. that was probably one of the hardest times, up until that point in my life, probably one of the hardest times that I had ever had in my lifetime was going through 8 weeks of basic training in Fort Riley, Kansas.
What were your feelings when you graduated?
Oh boy, it's over. And I could probably say, I could speak for all the rest of them. They were probably saying the same thing. This was good to be behind us, because it was horrible.
What was your first assignment after basic training?
It really wasn't an assignment, but it was like what the equivalency to today's second 8 weeks of basic training. At that time, being that, as I mentioned earlier, that there was a black army and a white army, they divided the basic training company by alphabet into 2 parts. And the upper part of the alphabet went to Japan, and they were the first into Korea. And the lower part went to Germany. That was, with my name being Wright, that I went to Germany. Now, all black soldiers, regardless of what the MOS was, had to go through this training center, which was called KBTC, Kiskin Basic Training Center. Now, this was a center where we had an 8-week indoctrination on how we were to represent. It was instilled in us that we were representing the United States, and that how we should react to as occupiers of someone that had lost war, and plus the fact that being that we were black, we had to take extra precautions to be on our best behavior at all times. And this was 8 weeks, and no weapons, just basically indoctrinations and classes on citizenship, really, in certain ways, and how to react to the white Germans population.
Did you receive any specialized training before you went overseas, like weapons or?
None whatsoever. Just the 8 weeks of basic training, and as I stated earlier, the indoctrination course at KBTC, or Kiskin Basic Training Center.
Were you able to fire weapons in your basic training?
Yeah, in the basic training, we fired the M1 weapon and automatic water-cooled machine guns, and that was basically it.
So you had some level of military training before you had that. Did you recall any of your instructors?
No, none. Really, because of the way I thought they were treating us, I wasn't interested in doing any of it.
Later on in your, what other kind of training later on in your military career did you have other types of trainings, like vehicles, weapons, etc.? Leadership. You were a leader.
Later on in my Army career, but as far as my, I had heavy weapons, water-cooled machine guns, and 81 millimeter mortar, and then eventually once I went into tanks, I had training all the way from the driver all the way up to the gunner, and eventually being a tank commander, and had courses in leadership, and I eventually ended up, before my career was over, I ended up teaching leadership at Fort Knox, Kentucky, along with track vehicle maintenance.
So how many men were under you in the tank as far as usually there's a team?
Well, I started off as a driver, and I graduated. In each case, I would gain rank. Started off as a driver, then went to a gunner, and by the time I got to be a tank commander, I was a E5. And then when I became platoon sergeant, then I went on up to E6, and that's basically how I graduated from a PFC up to E7.
Okay, when you were a tank commander, how many men were under your supervision?
When I was a tank commander, it was 4.
Just 4?
4. Yeah, just driver, gunner, loader, and commander. That's a tank.
So you finally retired as an E7, which is a
Platoon sergeant.
platoon sergeant.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adopt to?
Oh, that I can say going in under into the initial part of the Army, being where there were 2 armies. The transition from the 2 armies, the Black and the White Army, and into the integrated Army, there was some bad times, and there were good times. Once I would say once we got it. Let me kind of draw a picture for you. There were, in the First World War and in the Second World War, there was the 92nd Infantry Division, which was the only combat black combat outfit in the United States Army, was the 92nd Infantry Division. Now, I became, as my first assignment, a member of the 371st Infantry Battalion, which was a part of the old 92nd. You might have heard the term Buffalo Soldier mentioned. Mm-hmm. That's what the 92nd was. That was their nickname, the Buffalo Soldier, and they wore a patch with a black buffalo, round olive drab patch with a black buffalo in the middle of it. And basically, that was it. You had the United States Army being represented in both wars by one organization, which was the 92nd Infantry Division. I was in 371, there was 370, there was 373, 376, and it went in that manner. But getting back to your question, what was as far as transition, as far as was it problem, or what? I guess you can't call it a problem. You can't call it a problem, but a situation that wasn't completely to my liking was the transition from the all-black Army into the integrated Army. Acceptance, for example, in my case, when they integrated, our battalion integrated with the 4th Infantry out of Pennsylvania. Now, when we integrated, you had a lot lesser amount of black soldiers to integrate into the whole United States Army. And I ended up being only one of 2 people in my whole company, there was still left as a black in that integrated company. Now, we had been told that, oh, we had to up our standards and make our training habits, because during and after integration, we have to raise our standards to in order to become acceptable, or how do I put it, equal to the white soldiers. And once it happened, then I found, wow, I was scared to death when it happened. But once it happened, I thought, wow, this is a lot of BS. Plus the fact that I knew, being one or two that was left there, I knew all the training areas. I knew I had the upper hand, really, and in a way I got myself in trouble. But that was one of the, and this got better as we went along after integration.
Okay, what was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to? Why do you think it was?
Because I had been accustomed to everything around me being black. All my officers were black. All my co-workers were black. All my co-soldiers were black. And even though, even in my history, in my growing up, with a few exceptions, all my neighbors were, all the kids that I grew up with were black. And so this was a transition for me, is to integrate myself into a white environment, and which I did, but I had to work at it.
Okay. What was the easiest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to, and why do you think it was?
Oh, well, being in Germany and a young man, I enjoyed social life. And a part of Army life was, especially after I joined the 371st, was going out on weekend pass. And a weekend pass for a soldier to work 5 days, real hard training in the morning and going to school in the afternoon, was kind of dull until it came to Friday night. You take off on weekend pass and go out and do a little drinking and partying.
Did you have to serve in any actual warfare, or was it mostly you were in support and you were in over in Germany, which is more of a presence kind of thing?
Yeah, it was the occupation, the closest. Now, when Korea started, as I stated earlier, half my company went to Japan. They were first in Korea, and once I got to Germany, and Korea broke out, well, being a young whippersnapper, I want to go fight, you know, and so I put in for inter-service transfer, which was rejected, and but basically the only thing in occupation duty was the hardest thing was going up on the Czech border. At that time, I was in the 11th Armored Cavalry, and we didn't take vehicles. Everything was set up. Everything was set up. All you do is the company would go up there, and your binoculars was there, and you get on your tank, on the tank provided for you, and you're looking over a valley into another hillside, and where there were Czech soldiers doing the same thing you were doing, looking at you, and that was basically it. That was my combat.
So, how did your wartime experience change you?
How did my wartime experience?
Yeah, you served during wartime, but
Yeah, but not in
hot
combat.
water.
Not in combat. But it wasn't as easy as you might think. Well, you were in the service. In our case, we trained hard. We trained hard, and we went Camaraderie, which was horrible, dusty. We trained hard because we were occupation soldiers, but we had to be prepared for war. And we went to the Belsenholder British zone, and we fired weapons, guns, tank weapons. It wasn't easy. It wasn't every day, but you did that at least 3 months out of a year. You would be in some training center or some training camp, firing weapons or just doing combat type training.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
Well, I can go back to the Black Army. And I won't say this as a joke. I was in Company D, which was the heavy weapons company, and we in that company there were 3 Wrights: Robert Wright, Roosevelt Wright, and David Wright, and they gave us nicknames. Robert was kind of a little short, stumpy guy, and they called him Little Wright. Roosevelt was kind of tall, and I was kind of tall, so they had to make a difference between the two of us. And so they called him, Roosevelt, Big Wright. So what's left of me? They called me Wrong Wright. So that was my nickname. That was my nickname. I had to live with that for, even after I left that outfit. Later on in my Army career, I read, hey, Wrong Right, how's everything going? You know, that was my handle, was Wrong Right.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends?
Oh, it wasn't that much of that, because at a young age, I was living a young man's life, and I had to be reminded that by our company commander, did you write home? Oh, I better write home, you know. But other than that, that was it. You know, we were out there. We were out there doing our thing, training hard, working hard, and playing hard. And home, I don't think I thought about them until I got back there on vacation. I might add that I did my whole Army career in 3-year increments in order to control it. So that if I end up being a place that I really wasn't happy with, like one time Alaska, I just do the time I got there, re-enlist and go where I wanted to go. So that was a part of my Army career, was doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it.
Okay. What did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
Oh.
Living in Germany.
Oh, yeah. Go to the, well, in my first outfit, which was at 371st in Kiskin, I can tell you a little history about it. I mentioned the fact that KBTC was my second basic training, 8-week basic training, which was an indoctrination type thing. And then I was assigned to, in the same city, up at the Flak Concern in 371st, which was the outfit that was just developing. It was just developing. That was in 1949. And it was all black outfit. I moved in, and I was assigned to Company D. And what we did, we had 2 types of training. We trained in the morning with weapons and just general Army training. But in the afternoon, anyone that did not have a high school diploma, which I fit in that category, we were trained for a GED. That was part of my Army duties, was to train for a GED. And as far as the other part, I can bring out the fact that my first white commander was, I remember him like it was yesterday, was Colonel Maurice C. Bigelow. He was the Wurzburg post commander, under which command we as 371st as a combat unit came under his command. And every Thursday, we'd have a formal parade, and we'd pass a review for Colonel Bigelow and his bulldog. That bulldog would be right at his right, and we would pass a review. And the word was out in our organization, if that bulldog is ever caught loose, he's a dead dog. He was going to be a dead dog if he was ever caught loose.
So what countries did you get to visit while you were in Germany?
Oh, that was one of my things in school that was very interesting. I found was world history, and when I was in Landshut, which was I guess about 75 miles from the Austrian border. I did a lot of traveling. After my first enlistment, I went home, and they started asking me questions about this place and that place. Well, I didn't visit. I didn't go there. I was too busy partying and drinking and having fun. I made it into my mind that when I go back, I'm going to go and see some places. I went to Dachau. I went to Berchtesgaden. Berchtesgaden is it's a combination place. It's like a German resort area, and but it also has a history part to it, because right there as a part of Berchtesgaden, or right before you get to Berchtesgaden, you got to go past the Obersalzberg mountain, which is that's where the Predestule is located. The Predestule is where Hitler had his underground headquarters, and that's really where he committed suicide at. And there's a cable car. As a tourist, this is after the war when I was there. As a tourist, you could ride that cable car up and on top of that mountain, and you could see that historic place where Hitler had committed suicide. And being that we were so close to Austria, I didn't spend that much time in Austria. Best I did in Austria maybe eat a lunch, because you go into Austria, and then about 25 miles you're in Italy. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time in Italy visiting different places in Italy, and even so far as to research the area where the 92nd was, and that was where the 92nd Infantry Regiment was. It was also the same area where the Tuskegee Airmen were stationed at. It wasn't about 40 miles difference from where the airfield was, where the Tuskegee Airmen were, and where the headquarters for the 92nd Infantry Division was. So I got a chance to visit those two places, and after I got married, I married a German national. I honeymooned in Italy, in what's the canal city?
Venice.
Venice. That's where my honeymoon was in Venice. But I got a chance to do some sightseeing and do some traveling. Went to Spain several times, France. This was the part of my Army career that I really enjoyed, was traveling.
Okay, that may have answered my next question, because I was going to ask you what was the best part of your service experience.
Yeah, traveling.
Okay, you already answered that one. Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes, yes.
Where were you, and when your service ended?
At Fort Knox, Kentucky. I might bring out a few points. This was at that time the Vietnam War was just beginning. Well, it wasn't just beginning, but it was just getting hot. At the time, I was in a probably the best job I had in the 20-year service career. I had a teaching job at the Fort Knox Armor School. I was teaching track vehicle maintenance at the Armor School, and most of my students were either OCS students, because they had an OCS school there at Fort Knox, or field grade officers, or company grade officers that came in, they were assigned to tank outfits. And my job in the Armor School was to teach a course in track vehicle maintenance, and that was it. And so when it came to my retirement date, I had to choose between either going to Vietnam, accepting a warrant and going to Vietnam, going, because they weren't using any tanks in Vietnam, I'd have to either go to, I think it was Fort Riley, and be retrained as a infantry officer, which I didn't really look forward to. So I chose to do about 3 months. I'm not three. I had a 15-month stabilized tour at Fort Knox. I did the 15-month stabilized tour, and the 3 extra months I did to stay out of Vietnam and retire. I had 3 months after my 15 months. I'll put it like this: after my 15 months of stabilized tour, I had 3 months left before retirement, before I could either retire or accept a warrant and go another 3 years. And I had an incident that I could mention, but that told me you don't want to go there.
How did you readjust to civilian life? Did you work or go back to school?
That was easy. At the time, I really wanted to go into the Postal Service. But at the time, the Detroit Public Board of Education was changing their GROTC program from regular Army instructors to retirees. And I fell right in line. I retired on 1 January 1969, and 20 days later, I went to work for the Detroit School Board, Detroit Public School System, as a GROTC senior instructor at McKenzie High School, where I remained for 23 years. I enjoyed working with young folks. I worked with young folks at Fort Knox with those young OCS cadets, and I ran their club. I really ran the OCS club as a bartender and club manager. And so I enjoyed working with young folks. And when I got into GROTC, it was even more rewarding.
Did the GI Bill support your education?
Did I do what?
Did the GI Bill support your
Oh
education?
yes. Well, one of the requirements of working for the Detroit School Board was I had to be in either have a degree or be working on the degree, and that's I used my GI Bill to work to go to school while I was working. I in schools of lifelong learning at Wayne State University, and I did that right up until I retired.
So your military background led you to your whole career.
Yeah, really. That was it. When I retired from the Detroit School Board, you might well say I had 43 years in the Army because I wore the uniform. It was mandatory that even though we were in high school, it was mandatory at that time. They've since changed that we had to wear the uniform.
Did you join a veterans organization?
Yes, I joined while I was working for the Detroit School Board. I joined the AMVETS in Detroit because it was right down the street from where I lived at, and they had a bar, and they did a lot of bingo playing and a lot of socializing. And at that time, I was single, so I joined that organization. And then when I came to Florida, I joined the American Legion.
So what are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
Don't prejudge people. That's number one. Don't prejudge people. And do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And just before you, like when I say don't prejudge, before you think about prejudging anybody, try to walk a mile in their shoes. And I found that if you do that, you get along. You get along in this life, and people will accept you, and you'll find yourself being able to get along with just about anybody.
Is there anything you'd like to add that you haven't mentioned already?
Yeah. I haven't mentioned religion, and I had a religious background. My mother took me to church every Sunday, and after church was Sunday school. I spent 6 hours on Sunday. That was my life until I got to the point where I said I ain't, and then I went into service. So I went into service, and I got away from it. But after about 3 or 4 years of that young junk, my training came back to me, my church training, my religious training. And I even in the service, which wasn't that common, I got back in the church. And I say, if you don't have anywhere to go to church. If you got any problems, take them with you and leave them there. And that's what I tell any young man or any young person that's growing up that I think might have a problem.
One more question. What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
The veterans are they're good people. They work hard, they know how to work hard, and they know how to get along, and they know how to blend in. For the most part, they're just good people to be around.
Okay. Well, David, I really thank you for sharing your. I want to thank you for sharing your military career with the people of this country, this will be in the Library of Congress, and also it will be in the Oviedo Historical Society here in Oviedo. So I really thank you for sharing, and wish you a very happy rest of your life.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I've enjoyed this. And I'm glad you made that phone call.
Okay.